Mark lived in a small town where everyone knew each other, and people were very proud of their traditions. He was a successful and well-liked man who always followed the rules that his family and community expected of him. People admired Mark for being dependable and responsible, and he had a good life that seemed to be going exactly as planned. But everything changed when Mark met Lupita. Lupita was different from anyone Mark had ever met. She was a strong, independent black woman who had recently moved to the town with her 3 children. Lupita was kind and confident, with a smile that made everyone around her feel warm. She had faced many challenges in life, but she always stood tall and faced them head-on. Mark was immediately drawn to Lupita. He admired her strength, her courage, and the love she had for her children. Even though they came from very different backgrounds and the people in town started to gossip, Mark couldn't stop thinking about her. As they spent more time together, Mark realized that he was falling deeply in love with Lupita. She made him feel alive in a way he had never felt before. But not everyone was happy about Mark's new relationship. His family didn't approve of Lupita, and his friends told him he was making a big mistake. They said that the town would never accept their relationship, and that marrying a woman with 3 children, especially one who didn't fit in with the town's expectations, would only bring him trouble. People in the community whispered behind Mark's back, convinced that his marriage to Lupita would never work out. Despite all the warnings and the laughter, Mark knew what he felt in his heart. He didn't care about the gossip or the disapproval. He loved Lupita and her children, and he couldn't imagine his life without them. Mark decided to follow his heart and propose to Lupita, who happily accepted. They knew that their path wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to face any challenges together. When the town heard the news of Mark and Lupita's engagement, many people were shocked. They couldn't believe that Mark, who had always done what was expected of him, was marrying a black woman with 3 children. People laughed, thinking that the marriage would be a disaster and that Mark would soon regret his decision. But Mark didn't care what others thought. He had found true love, and nothing was going to stop him from marrying Lupita. As Mark and Lupita prepared for their life together, they knew they would have to navigate a rocky road filled with challenges and conflicts. But their love for each other was strong, and they were determined to make it work, no matter what anyone else said. Their journey was just beginning, and it would be filled with trials that would test their love and commitment in ways they never expected. The day of Mark and Lupita's wedding finally arrived, but it wasn't the joyful celebration that most weddings are. The air was thick with tension, and there were whispers all around. Many people in the town came to the wedding, but not to celebrate. They came out of curiosity, expecting to see a spectacle rather than a true celebration of love. They didn't believe in Mark and Lupita's relationship, and they thought the marriage wouldn't last. Mark's family was there, but they weren't supportive. They stood cold and distant, making it clear that they didn't approve of Mark's decision to marry Lupita. They couldn't understand why Mark would choose to marry someone so different from what they expected, especially a woman with 3 children. They believed he was making a huge mistake. Despite all the negative energy around them, Mark and Lupita's love shone brightly. They held each other's hands tightly and exchanged those with full hearts, determined to face whatever challenges came their way together. They knew their love was real and strong, and that was all that mattered to them. But after the wedding, things didn't get any easier. As Mark and Lupita started their life together as husband and wife, they faced many difficulties. The town's prejudice and judgmental attitudes were everywhere. People gave them disapproving looks whenever they were out together, and some even refused to serve them in stores. It was clear that many people didn't want to accept their marriage. Mark's family, especially his parents, put even more pressure on him. They warned him that he was throwing his life away by marrying Lupita. They believed he was marrying beneath him, and tried to convince him to leave her. They couldn't see the love and happiness that Lupita brought into his life. They only saw what they thought was a mistake. Mark and Lupita struggled as they adjusted to married life. They faced obstacles at every turn, and the constant pressure from Mark's family and the town made things even harder. But despite the challenges, Mark's love for Lupita never wavered. He knew in his heart that he had made the right choice, even if no one else believed it. The road ahead was going to be tough, but Mark and Lupita were ready to face it together. Their love was strong, and they knew that as long as they had each other, they could get through anything. After their wedding, life became even more difficult for Mark and Lupita. They had always known that being together would bring challenges, but they hadn't expected things to become so tough so quickly. One of the biggest problems they faced was money. Mark began to experience problems at work. His business partners and clients, many of whom were part of the same community that disapproved of his marriage, started to distance themselves. Some of them refused to work with him anymore, just because he had married Lupita. This made it hard for Mark to earn money, and his income started to drop. The financial stability that he had always enjoyed was slipping away. Lupita, who had been a single mother before marrying Mark, did her best to help out. She had always worked hard to support her children, and she continued to do so now. But with Mark's income dropping, it was difficult for them to make ends meet. The financial strain started to weigh heavily on both of them, making it harder to enjoy the life they had built together. The pressure was coming from all sides. Mark's family continued to criticize his decision to marry Lupita, constantly telling him that he was making a mistake. The community's disapproval was clear in the way people treated them. It seemed like everywhere they turned, someone was trying to tear them down. Mark felt torn. He loved Lupita and her children deeply. The constant pressure from his family and the community was overwhelming. He started to worry about whether he could provide for his family and whether he had made the right choices. The doubts began to creep in, even though he knew in his heart how much he loved them. Lupita, on the other hand, felt the strain as well. She couldn't help but worry that she was the cause of Mark's troubles. She had always been strong, but seeing the man she loved struggle because of their marriage was hard to bear. She feared that Mark might begin to resent her, even though she knew how much he cared. As the financial troubles mounted, so did the emotional stress. The strain on their marriage grew heavier each day, and the love they shared was put to the test. They were both fighting to keep their heads above water, but the challenges seemed to be piling up faster than they could handle. Mark and Lupita were at a crossroads, and the decisions they made in the coming days would determine the future of their marriage and their family. They had always believed that their love was strong enough to overcome anything, but now they were being pushed to their limits. As the financial struggles continued to put pressure on Mark and Lupita's marriage, Mark's parents decided to take matters into their own hands. They had never approved of Mark's marriage to Lupita, and now they saw an opportunity to finally end it. They believed that if they could just get Lupita out of the picture, Mark's life would return to what they considered normal. Mark's parents knew that money was tight for the couple, so they came up with a plan. They approached Mark and offered him financial support, but there was a catch. They would only help him if he agreed to leave Lupita. They tried to convince Mark that he was making a huge mistake by staying with her, and that his life would be much easier without her and her children. They thought they were doing what was best for him, even though it was tearing him apart. But they didn't stop there. Mark's parents secretly approached Lupita as well. They offered her money to leave Mark and take her children far away. They believed that if Lupita really cared about Mark, she would take the offer and disappear from his life, giving him a chance to start over. They thought they were helping their son, but they didn't understand the love that Mark and Lupita shared. When Lupita received the offer, she was heartbroken. She felt insulted that Mark's parents thought she could be bought off, but she was also deeply worried about Mark's future. She knew how much he was struggling, and the thought of making his life easier by leaving him began to weigh on her mind. She loved Mark with all her heart, but she didn't want to be the cause of his pain. Lupita faced an internal struggle like never before. She knew that leaving Mark would tear her apart, but she also didn't want to see him suffer any longer. She wondered if maybe, just maybe, leaving was the best thing she could do for him. The thought of walking away from the man she loved and the life they had built together was almost too much to bear, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it might be the only way to truly help him. The decision weighed heavily on Lupita's heart. She didn't know what to do. Every part of her wanted to stay with Mark and fight for their marriage, but the pressure from his parents and the fear of making his life harder made her question everything. Lupita was at a crossroads, and the choice she made would change everything. Would she stay and fight for her love, or would she leave to give Mark the life his parents thought he deserved? The answer wasn't clear, and the stakes had never been higher. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more difficult for Mark and Lupita, something shocking happened that changed everything. One morning, Mark received an urgent phone call. His father had suffered a severe stroke. The stroke left him partially paralyzed, and suddenly, the man who had always been strong and controlling was vulnerable and in need of help. Mark was faced with a very difficult decision. Despite the way his parents had treated him and Lupita, especially their efforts to break up his marriage, his father was still his father. Mark knew that he couldn't just walk away. He felt a deep sense of loyalty, even though he was hurt and angry about how his parents had tried to manipulate him. Lupita saw the struggle in Mark's eyes. She knew how much pain his parents had caused him, but she also knew that this was a moment where Mark needed to do what was right. Without hesitation, Lupita told Mark that she would support him in taking care of his father. Even though his family had rejected her, Lupita showed kindness and compassion. She understood that this was bigger than the hurt that it caused her. Together, Mark and Lupita stepped in to help care for his father. Lupita's selflessness and willingness to help began to soften the hearts of those who had once judged her. Mark's mother, who had always been cold toward Lupita, started to see her in a new light. She was surprised by the kindness Lupita showed, especially after everything that had happened. Mark, too, was forced to confront his own feelings. He saw how deeply ingrained his family's prejudices were, but he also saw how Lupita's love and kindness were breaking down those barriers. He realized that his loyalty to his family didn't mean he had to accept their beliefs. He could love them while still standing by the woman he loved. This moment became a turning point for everyone. Mark's father, who had once been so determined to control Mark's life, now had to rely on the very people he had tried to push away. It was humbling, and it made him see things differently. Mark's mother, too, began to question the way they had treated Lupita and her children. As Mark and Lupita continued to care for his father, the family dynamic slowly began to change. The walls of prejudice that had once stood between them started to crumble, and a new understanding began to form. It wasn't easy, it didn't happen overnight. But the love and compassion that Mark and Lupita showed started to heal the wounds that had divided them. This was the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one that would challenge them in new ways but also bring them closer together as a family. As Mark's father slowly began to recover from his stroke, something unexpected started to happen. He had always been a proud man, stuck in his ways and full of prejudice. But now, as he depended on Mark and Lupita for help, he began to see things differently. Every day, Lupita was there, caring for him with kindness and patience. She never complained, even though his family had hurt her deeply in the past. She showed love not only for Mark, but also for his father, treating him with respect and compassion. This dedication began to chip away at the walls of prejudice that had kept them apart for so long. Mark's father started to see Lupita not just as the woman who had married his son, but as a person with a kind heart and strong character. He began to appreciate her and see the love she brought into Mark's life. The old feelings of prejudice didn't seem as important anymore, not when compared to the care and love she was showing him. At the same time, Mark's mother was watching everything closely. She had always been the one to push the hardest against Mark's marriage to Lupita. But seeing Lupita care for her husband and noticing how much happiness she brought to Mark and the children made her start to question her beliefs. She began to realize that her actions, driven by prejudice, had caused a lot of pain for her son and his family. Little by little, Mark's mother began to reach out to Lupita. At first, it was in small ways, a kind word here, a helping hand there. But these small gestures were significant. They were the first steps toward healing the wounds that had been created by her disapproval and rejection. As the days passed, Mark's parents began to truly accept Lupita and her children. They saw how much love and stability Lupita brought into Mark's life, and they began to understand that this was what truly mattered. The expectations of society and the old prejudices they had held on to seemed less important as they watched their family come together in love and support. The family began to heal. Mark's parents grew closer to Lupita and their grandchildren, spending more time with them and getting to know them as individuals. The relationships that had once seemed impossible started to take shape. It wasn't easy, and there were still challenges along the way, but the progress they made was real and meaningful. For the first time, Mark's family felt united. The love that Mark and Lupita shared had not only brought them together, but had also helped to break down the barriers that had once kept them apart. The family was on a path to becoming stronger, more understanding, and more loving than ever before. As time went on, Mark and Lupita's marriage grew stronger. They faced many challenges together, but their love and commitment to each other only deepened. The people in the town, who had once doubted their relationship and even laughed at their union, began to notice something different. The strength and love that Mark and Lupita shared were hard to ignore. Lupita, who had always been strong and kind, started to get more involved in the community. She volunteered at local events, helped out at the school where her children attended, and even started a small business that quickly gained respect. People began to see her not just as the woman Mark married, but as a valued and important part of the community. Her kindness, hard work, and resilience earned her admiration from those who had once looked down on her. The community started to see the truth, that the love and happiness Mark and Lupita shared were real and strong. The whispers and gossip that once surrounded them began to fade, replaced by a growing respect for the couple. One day, something unexpected happened. One of Mark's old friends, who had been particularly cruel and dismissive about his marriage to Lupita, approached him in the town square. This friend had once been the loudest voice of doubt, making fun of Mark and saying that his marriage would never last. But now, standing in front of Mark, the friend looked different, regretful, and ashamed. In front of several other townspeople, the friend publicly apologized to Mark. He admitted that he had been wrong to judge Mark and Lupita, and that he had underestimated their love and strength. He told Mark that he admired how they had proved everyone wrong and how they had stayed strong despite all the challenges. This moment was significant. It was the first public acknowledgement from someone in the community that they had been wrong about Mark and Lupita's marriage. After this apology, others began to follow suit. People who had once doubted or mocked them started to recognize their mistakes and began to treat Mark and Lupita with the respect they deserved. The community's perception had shifted. What was once seen as a mistake or a joke was now viewed as an example of true love and resilience. Mark and Lupita had proved everyone wrong, and in doing so, they had earned the respect and admiration of the entire town. Lupita had always been a hard worker, determined to provide the best life she could for her children. After facing so many challenges and proving everyone wrong about her marriage to Mark, she decided it was time to focus on something she had always dreamed of, starting her own business. With Mark's support, Lupita poured her heart and soul into building her business. She worked long hours, faced many obstacles, and never gave up. Her hard work and determination started to pay off. The business grew and soon it became very successful. Not only did this bring financial stability to the family, but it also earned Lupita a great deal of respect in the community. People began to see Lupita not just as Mark's wife, but as a successful businesswoman in her own right. Her achievements showed everyone that she was strong, smart, and capable of building something great from the ground up. The respect she earned was well-deserved, and it marked a new chapter in her life and in the life of her family. Mark, who had stood by Lupita through all the tough times, felt immense pride in her accomplishments. He was inspired by her resilience and strength, and he knew that she had done something truly special. Seeing her succeed made him even more proud to be her husband, and it brought them closer together as a couple. The success of Lupita's business also had a positive impact on their children. With the love and support of both Mark and Lupita, the children began to flourish in their own ways. They did well in school, made good friends, and found their own passions and talents. The whole family became stronger and more united, and their bond grew deeper with each passing day. In the eyes of the community, Mark and Lupita's family became a symbol of love, unity, and perseverance. They had faced so many challenges, but they had come out stronger on the other side. The family's success, both as individuals and as a unit, solidified their place in the community. They were no longer just a family that people once doubted. They were a shining example of what could be achieved with love, hard work, and determination. Mark and Lupita looked at their children with pride, knowing that they had built a strong and loving family together. The legacy they were creating wasn't just about financial success. It was about the love and support that held them together through thick and thin. They knew that no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them together as a united family. As time passed, Mark's parents began to reflect on everything that had happened. They thought about how hard they had tried to break up Mark and Lupita's marriage, and they realized how close they had come to losing their son. They remembered the hurtful things they had said and the pressure they had put on Mark to leave Lupita. Now, seeing how happy and successful their son and his family had become, they were filled with deep regret. Mark's parents could see how wrong they had been. They had judged Lupita unfairly and had nearly destroyed their relationship with their own son because of their prejudice. They realized that if Mark had listened to them, they might never have known their wonderful grandchildren, and they would have missed out on the love and joy that Lupita brought into their lives. One day, they sat down with Mark and Lupita to express their regret. With tears in their eyes, they told Mark how sorry they were for all the pain they had caused. They admitted that they had been wrong to try to tear the family apart, and that they were truly grateful for the second chance they had been given to be part of their grandchildren's lives. They promised to be better, to support Mark and Lupita's family, and to never let their old prejudices come between them again. Lupita, who had shown so much strength and kindness, even when they had treated her badly, accepted their apology. She knew how hard it was for them to admit their mistakes, and she appreciated their willingness to change. Mark, too, was grateful that his parents had finally come to see the truth and were ready to move forward with love and understanding. The community also began to realize how wrong they had been about Mark and Lupita. Many of the people who had once laughed at their marriage and spread gossip now saw them in a new light. They recognized that Mark and Lupita's love had survived and thrived, despite all the challenges they had faced. The whispers and gossip that had once surrounded them faded away, replaced by admiration and respect. People in the town began to see Mark and Lupita as an example of true love and resilience. They admired how the couple had faced so many obstacles, but had come out stronger on the other side. The community's regret for how they had treated Mark and Lupita was clear, and many people made an effort to show their respect and support in small but meaningful ways. Mark and Lupita had not only proven their doubters wrong, but they had also helped to change the hearts and minds of those around them. Their journey had been difficult, but it had also brought about healing and growth, not just for their family, but for the entire community. Years after their journey began, Mark and Lupita decided it was time to celebrate their love in a special way. They had been through so much together, facing challenges, overcoming doubts, and proving their love to everyone who had once questioned it. They felt it was the perfect time to renew their vows, to celebrate not just their marriage, but the incredible journey they had taken together. They planned a beautiful ceremony inviting their family, friends, and many members of the community. People who came weren't just there to watch. They were there to celebrate Mark and Lupita's love. The story ended on a high note. The family, once divided by prejudice and doubt, was now united in love and respect. Mark and Lupita stood surrounded by their children, who had flourished under their care and love. They looked forward to the future with hope and joy, knowing that they had built something truly special. The community, which had once laughed and gossiped about their marriage, now celebrated it. The laughter that once followed them had turned into admiration and pride. Mark and Lupita's love had triumphed over adversity, and their story became a beacon of hope for others. As they walked hand in hand into their future, Mark and Lupita knew that whatever challenges might come, they would face them together, with love, strength, and the unbreakable bond they had created.